Imagine losing your identity as a child, having your future stripped away before you could even understand what was happening to you. Picture being torn from your family, subjected to a brutal procedure that would forever change your body and mind, all to serve in the palaces of one of history's most powerful empires. This was the reality for thousands of young boys in the Ottoman Empire who became eunuchs not by choice, but by the cruel demands of imperial politics and social hierarchy. Today, we're diving into one of history's most disturbing yet fascinating practices, exploring the tragic fate of these forgotten children whose lives were sacrificed on the altar of power and control. Before we continue, what shocks you most about this practice? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Hit that like button if this historical content interests you, and don't forget to subscribe because we explore the darkest corners of history that textbooks often skip. To understand the tragedy of Ottoman eunuchs, we must first grasp who they were and how this system emerged. Eunuchs were castrated males who served in various capacities within the Ottoman palace system, but their origins trace back much further than the Ottoman Empire itself. The practice began in ancient civilizations like Assyria, Persia, and China, where castrated men were considered ideal servants for royal courts because they posed no threat to dynastic succession and could be trusted around women of the imperial household. When the Ottomans rose to power in the 13th century, they inherited and expanded this system, creating one of the most sophisticated eunuch hierarchies in world history. The Ottoman Empire recruited eunuchs primarily through two methods: the devshirme system, which forcibly recruited Christian boys from the Balkans, and through purchasing already castrated slaves from North Africa and the Caucasus. These boys, typically between ages 8 and 12, came from diverse backgrounds. Some were peasant children, others from merchant families, and many were war captives. Regardless of their origin, they all shared the same tragic destiny: to be transformed into instruments of imperial service, their natural development permanently altered to serve the needs of the state. The castration process itself was barbarically cruel and often fatal. Young boys were subjected to this procedure in specialized centers, primarily in the regions that supplied eunuchs to the Ottoman market. The operation involved the complete removal of male genitalia using primitive tools and techniques that would horrify modern medical practitioners. The procedure was performed without anesthesia, using only crude instruments like sharp knives or heated metal tools. After the brutal cutting, the wound was sealed with boiling oil or covered with paper soaked in cold water, and a tube was inserted to allow urination. The boys were then buried up to their waists in hot sand or manure, believed to help with healing and prevent infection. The mortality rate was staggering. Historical records suggest that between 80 to 90% of boys subjected to castration died from infection, blood loss, or shock within the first few days. Those who survived faced weeks of agony as their bodies slowly healed from the trauma. The psychological impact was equally devastating, as these children had to process not only the physical pain but also the reality that their bodies had been permanently altered, that they would never experience normal sexual development, marriage, or fatherhood. The surviving boys were then trained and prepared for their roles in Ottoman society, their childhood effectively ending the moment the knife fell. Within Ottoman society, eunuchs occupied unique positions that were simultaneously privileged and tragic. They served in two primary areas: the imperial palace and wealthy private households. In the Topkapi Palace, eunuchs were divided into white eunuchs, typically of Christian European origin, and black eunuchs, usually from Africa. The black eunuchs held the most prestigious positions, serving as guardians of the imperial harem and holding the title of Kisler Agassi, or chief black eunuch, one of the most powerful positions in the empire. These men wielded enormous political influence, controlling access to the sultan's women and children, managing vast financial resources, and often serving as the sultan's most trusted advisors. White eunuchs primarily served in the outer palace, handling administrative duties, serving as pages, and managing various court functions. Despite their high positions, eunuchs lived in a paradox. They held power but could never fully enjoy it. They served in the most intimate spaces of the empire but could never participate in the fundamental human experiences of love, marriage, and family. Their loyalty was secured not just through their physical condition but through their complete dependence on the imperial system for survival and status. They became the ultimate insiders who were forever outsiders, trusted precisely because they could never pose a dynastic threat. Among the most famous Ottoman eunuchs was Gazanfer Aga, who served under Sultan Murad III and became one of the most powerful figures in the empire during the late 16th century. As chief black eunuch, he controlled enormous wealth, influenced major political decisions, and even had a hand in selecting future sultans. His story illustrates both the heights eunuchs could reach and the fundamental emptiness of their achievements. Despite his power, he remained a man whose childhood had been stolen and whose natural life had been sacrificed for imperial service. Another notable figure was Yusuf Aga, who served under Sultan Ahmed III and accumulated such wealth that he funded major architectural projects in Istanbul and Mecca. These men lived in luxury, surrounded by servants and influence. Yet their memoirs and letters reveal deep melancholy and a sense of incompleteness that no amount of power could fill. Mehmed Aga, another prominent eunuch, left behind writings that described the constant awareness of being different, of watching normal life from the outside, of having power over others while having no power over his own fundamental nature. These successful eunuchs often became patrons of arts and architecture, perhaps seeking immortality through stone and beauty, since they could not achieve it through children and family legacy. The psychological and emotional consequences of the eunuch system created profound human tragedy that extended far beyond the initial physical trauma. These men lived with the constant reminder of what had been taken from them, watching other men marry, have children, and build families while they remained forever isolated from these fundamental human experiences. Many historical accounts describe eunuchs as prone to depression, mood swings, and a particular kind of melancholy that came from their unique position in society. They often developed intense emotional attachments to the imperial family members they served, creating pseudo-familial relationships that could never fully satisfy their human need for connection. The physical changes caused by prepubescent castration also created ongoing health issues. Many eunuchs developed obesity, brittle bones, and other complications related to hormonal imbalances. Perhaps most tragically, they lived with the knowledge that their sacrifice was ultimately meaningless on a personal level. They could accumulate wealth and power, but they could not pass it on to children, they could not experience romantic love, and they could not participate in the normal cycle of human life that gives meaning to most people's existence. When they died, their wealth typically reverted to the imperial treasury, their influence died with them, and they left behind no family to remember their names. They were living ghosts, present in the most important moments of empire but absent from the most important moments of human life, their childhood sacrifice creating a lifetime of isolation that no amount of power or privilege could overcome. The Ottoman eunuch system represents one of history's most systematic destructions of human potential, where thousands of children were sacrificed not for any greater good, but simply to maintain the power structures of an empire that saw human beings as expendable resources in the machinery of state control. This tragic practice reminds us how systems of power can dehumanize individuals in the name of stability and control. The Ottoman eunuchs paid the ultimate price for imperial ambitions they never chose to serve. What aspects of this historical tragedy do you find most disturbing? Share your thoughts below, and subscribe for more deep dives into history's forgotten stories.